Hello, everyone, and welcome to another horrific review. Right, I thought I would stick this one in, just a wee random movie. I know I hadn't it planned, but sorry, feedback. To apologise. Right, so I thought I'd do the sequel to The Crow City of Angels. Yeah, this is the thing. God, there's 4 of these movies. I didn't realize there was 4 Crow movies. And I don't know whether the other 2 were based off the TV series or that's a complete separate entity on its own. But yeah, I remember this back in the day, and it was god awful then. It's still awful now. So, Crow City of Angels, Spirit of a Crow resurrects another man seeking revenge for the murder of his son. So, obviously, City of Angels set in Los Angeles, supposed to be some sort of futuristic, gothic type place, but honestly, it looks terrible. They actually spent more money on this one, so they spent 26 million budget and 3 million more than the original, and it looks awful. And you can kind of see the waste. So obviously in the first Crow, we have the sense of the set it in Detroit. We had the sense of the city. We had the reality meeting the sort of extra normal, if that makes sense, because you had the reality of the city. You had people going about their daily business, and then you had the rampant crime, and then you had the supernatural aspect. This feels like a badly drawn comic. I mean, this is like it's directed by David S. Goyer, but it feels like something Michael Schumacher would have come off with, like one of his silly Batman movies. I do believe this was direct to DVD at the time, and it shows purely as you can kind of guess, I'm not a fan. Really, I didn't like it when it came out. It does not hold up well. It's funny how the difference in tone, like there's only a couple of years apart from these movies. Sorry, excuse me, flip's sake. Of course I go on stream and everything's going wrong. Do apologise, flipping. This is what happens when I do a stream on a Sunday night and not used to it. But yeah, the tone is completely different. It's a completely different world. The idea of the story is good. So what they did is obviously they're carrying on with the Crow legend. The tenuous link, which I think didn't work, is it involves Sarah as a grown-up. Now, if you weren't paying attention, you wouldn't know it was Sarah because you really get no sense of like the history or why she should come in. The script in this is god awful. I mean, it is. I'm gonna try it because I've used the word exposition a lot lately, and I don't want to do it anymore. I feel like I've beaten that word to death. But that's all it is. These are just characters giving monologues. It's very, very strange. And there's no reason for Sarah to have the abilities she does. You know, she's got sight now, she has dreams, she's now got a connection. Where the first movie, the connection was personal. It made sense. And Sarah had a connection to both Eric and Shelley. So now we've got her as a fully fledged adult. And these apartments they have in these films are ridiculous. She's effectively living in a mansion. If you think about space, especially somewhere like LA, you know, LA is like bloody London. Property prices are ridiculous. You're not basically having a penthouse, and then just because you want to lie on a shitty mattress and light a few candles about the place, you know, they're trying to make it as if it's a squat, but not. It's just completely unrealistic. Even the apartment that Eric and Shelley lived in was a bit over the top. You know, people would pay good money. There's no way I would just get rented out the, you know, and she's a tattoo artist. and she's, she doesn't own the tattoo parlor, so she's not making that level of money to justify where she's living. Plus, her age isn't really hinting that she's built up that much of a repertoire, and she's dealing with all the scuzzy clients as well. It just doesn't make sense, and that's the problem with this movie. And this is where the first movie got it so right with the tone, and yeah, there's a bit of a fantastical element, but you're eased into it because of real life happening around you. As I've always said, you have to ground the reality before you're prepared to accept the fantastical, and you know it. You know when you watch a movie and it doesn't feel real, and you're not there, and there's something just scratching at the back of your head, and you might not have the words for it, but you know it's there. You look at the first Crow, you could believe you were living there, and life would go on as normal if you weren't directly involved in the events. Where this feels like you're in a comic book, and it's just completely like it's left reality altogether. And it's how do I describe it? It's somebody trying to be artsy fartsy. That's what they've done with this. They've made this like all like they've put the money into these stage sets, and it looks like a stage set as well. It doesn't look like a city, and you can tell it's all been built, and nothing is real. The sky isn't real. You could just tell it's at the back. You know what I mean? You take a step behind some of the houses, you know you're in the middle of a warehouse. You just have that feeling about it that it's not an actual tangible place. Now they're talking about what's it, the Day of the Dead. There's that All Saints Day. So do you remember talking about the first one? And within 10 minutes, you had everything you need. This does the opposite. This meanders on the entire movie. Ash and his son, and the fact that they were killed, how they were killed, and it goes back and forth all throughout the movie. And it feels like filler at some point. At some point you stop caring because it just feels like they're filling in time, and that's not good. The Ash coming out, the fact that Sarah goes to where he was, and she looks as if she's like in her night dress and just got out of bed. Yet she drove there. It's just, and the way they have her walking and stuff makes it look all ethereal and unreal, and that wasn't what the movie was about. When you look how Sarah, the young actress, met Eric, when you look how Ernie Hudson's character, the sergeant, he met him, you felt real. You felt as if you could bump into the Crow. This just felt like they're trying to do a long dream, and once again, you're not invested. You're sort of going along, going, "Yeah, okay, that's a pretty shot. That's a pretty shot," but there's no substance to it. So you don't resonate with the protagonist to begin with. So that's never good. If you're not feeling an affinity for the protagonist, you don't care whether they succeed or fail. You're just going along with it. Let's talk about Judah Earl. Oh my god, talking about Top Dollar 2.0, like bargain basement Top Dollar. That's what Judah Earl is in this. They've basically just taken the premise from the first movie and they've just made a cheap knockoff. Like, it's bad. And it's almost comical. And once again, you don't see the threat. They have a scene where one of his dealers has destroyed a load of product because it was sending the users like into fits and convulsions and stuff. For a start, they wouldn't do that anyway. They would just sell it. Drug dealers don't give a shit. And he would bring it back. He'd speak, they just had this weird scene to show how scary Judah is. And he's not. He's comical. When you think back to the first movie, Top Dollar had this essence of he was controlled, he was ruthless, but he was just borderline ready to fall off the edge. So his own subordinates didn't know whether he was going to fly off the handle or not. And that hence a dangerous character. This guy's just a cabaret act. No, this isn't the new movie. The new movie's not out yet. This is the sequel. So they'd already made a bad sequel. This, The Crow City of Angels. They made 4 Crow movies in total, and each one got progressively worse. But what I will say is they never remade The Crow. So this is a continuation of the story. It's not Erica's time, it's Ash. It's another soul being carried by the Crow back for vengeance. So at least they still had the respect. As much as I'm not a fan of this movie, they still had the respect not to trample over what came before. Yes, did they spend more money and make it look like a cheap knockoff of the first one? Absolutely. And that's just down the creative vision. David S. Goyer, he's well known. He's more of a TV personally. What has he done? He's just one of them names. Oh, producer, Dark City. He was involved with Nolan with the Batman movies. Dark City was a weird one. He's more a producer than a director. Oh, he's involved with the Hellraiser remake. Yeah, he's one of them. He's a jobbing producer. So he's not like a director with vision, if that makes sense. He's a civil servant of Hollywood. I think that'd be the best way to describe him. You know, he's mainstream milk toast, throw the stuff out there. He's not like a creative person. So maybe he's the wrong person to do this type of movie. And there's always going to be comparison. Let's be honest, it's a sequel. It's a direct-to-DVD sequel back in the day of a better property, and these were notorious. We were used to these. There was almost like an ecosystem, if that makes sense. You had your tentpole cinema releases, your summer blockbusters, and if something did well surprisingly, put it like this, like The Crow in its own right could have been a forgotten movie, just a quirky movie put out there. It just happened that it was lightning in a bottle. The right elements came together. It looked amazing. And add that with the tragedy involving Brandon Lee, it gave it, it gave it its own unique spin. But mainly because of Brandon Lee passing and all that, they were never going to make a Crow. He was never going to be the character because that wasn't even the story anyway. But back then, a movie like this, they were never going to do a full cinema release of The Crow 2. It just wasn't that type of movie. So what you get are these straight to DVD sequels. And the thing is, we didn't get annoyed by it because we knew what the ecosystem was. So the DVD would be bargain basement type stuff. And you could either pick it up out of idle curiosity, but you didn't get annoyed by it because it sort of had its place and they knew what it was. It was the same when this came out. You knew what you were getting. It wasn't going to be as good. There wasn't going to be as much thought put into it because that's been done. This is just, filling shelves at the rental market. And that was fine. And I still get slagged off because at the end of the day, it's a bad movie. But American Psycho, Wild Things, God, help me out, folks. You know what I'm talking about. The direct-to-DVD sequels, there were absolutely tons of them. There's probably ones I don't even know existed. Leprechaun is an interesting one. That became like its own franchise. But because I had Warwick Davis, he kept a good link and it didn't take itself too seriously. So that technically, the movie did better than what people thought it would. And then the direct-to-DVD sequels, but then Warwick Davis managed to give it its own life. So it became its own thing. So that was another anomaly. And that's the thing though. Back in this time, you had that variety. You had these anomalies pop up and you just didn't know. Like you had your crowd pleasers your generic action movies and all that kind of stuff. That was fine. Movies like The Crow were kind of niche. They weren't really for general audiences, but sometimes in this case, they gather steam. Just certain circumstances, a certain aesthetic, the storyline, everything comes together, and it just hits the cultural zeitgeist and goes on. Difference is, obviously, back then, if it didn't have enough legs, they could always tell. Like the first one did decently, but it wasn't like $1 billion, that changed the face of cinema or anything. So they knew that a sequel's all like, I think you always look at half of what the sequel's going to be, and then it's diminishing returns the longer a franchise goes on. So they kind of knew it didn't have the legs to go for a full cinema release, but they managed to spend more money. Now, obviously allowed for inflation, but they managed to spend more money for a straight to DVD release. And like I said, it just doesn't look anything like the original. Fair play to them though, like they did attempt to carry the story on with now a new protagonist. And instead of being two star-crossed lovers with a father and son, wrong place, wrong time. But once again, the dialogue in this is so clunky. I mean, it takes you out of it. Every time a character in this opens their mouth, you're taken out of the movie. So you've got all these nice set pieces, and it's almost like a dream. I think that's what you're trying to look for, a dream. But the problem is the characters sound like they're half asleep as well. Sarah sounds as if she's half baked off her noggin this whole movie. Like she sounds as if she's like just tripping. Just the way they have her dialogue. The scene itself where Ash and his son, they hear a gunshot and they even have someone going, "What was that?" and runs towards it. On what bloody planet would a kid run towards a gunshot? It doesn't happen. Especially if you're in an area of high crime and you know the score. That part of our lizard brain knows not to go that way. And just even that whole scene was awful. And it actually cheapened, you'd no impact then from the scene itself because the dialogue, the acting, it's just so ham-fisted that you just don't you don't care. And that's the worst thing you do. If you don't care about the protagonist, why you invested in the story and how it's going to come. Iggy Pop just acted like Iggy Pop. Let's be honest. You know what I mean? He just acted like himself. It was funny, but yeah, he fitted in better than most. Like you see some of the other gang members, like that guy in the peeping booth, and the overacting with that was ridiculous. The whole flouncing and throwing the money and grabbing the coins and didn't set the coins. He's throwing his coat and stuff about and just overacting. You've got the girl with the likes to do the camcorder, video the incidents. Like they were all 2D characters. And it almost was comical. It was unintentional comedy. And then that's what you don't want with your antagonist. You want to have a sense of dread of this is somebody that's dangerous. Where she just got the idea of the clown show. What would be a good example? The Matrix, was it the third? No, the second one, the nightclub. They like to do this in Hollywood, like that nightclub scene, because it was in the Matrix itself, it looked like a dream. It wasn't the real world. That's what they were doing. There were computer programs going about running their algorithms. And that's what you felt with this. The word people, their computer programs run algorithms. And you just, they're playing with the whole fetish scene. And it just looks awful. It just looks cheap and nasty, and that's it. And then Judah himself, like you can't take this character seriously. You think of the first movie, you think of Top Dollar, and you think of Tintin and that, and Tony Todd's character, I forget. But you had capable people at the top. Then you had your sort of mid rank, and you had your foot soldiers, and the foot soldiers were normally the tweakers. They're on hands. You just point them in the right direction, let them go, and you got that sense of hierarchy. This you just get, oh, Judah's a sadist, so he has a scene where he's watching somebody get candle wax poured on him and some weird fatty sex scene, but he's not watching it directly. He's watching it through a camera when they're in the next room. And it's just all like a pop video. That's what this whole thing looks like. It's all like they're doing poses for a pop video and not actually acting in a movie. And you just can't get invested in it. That's my major issue with this. You notice I'm not talking about the plot because there isn't really one. We've seen the plot the first time, so we know Ash and some were killed. We know he comes back as the Crow. And even Sarah doing his makeup and that, and then she wants to have sex with him, and she knows he's a corpse. And she's trying to be this alt, edgy goth chick type thing, and because the actress just doesn't play, has no presence, and just the wee kid was a better actor in the first one. Put it like that, the wee kid that played Sarah was a better actor and had more range than this fully adult actor. The kid showed more street smarts and maturity, and this one, honestly, she's so naive and just out there, and like I said, she acts as if she's baked off her tree. You just don't know what the hell's going on. So essentially, the rest of this movie is just playing out the same beats as the first one, but just not looking as well. Ash goes get revenge. So Judah has, God, what do you call her? He essentially has a psychic with him as his Callie. Is it? No, that's the Grace. It's Grace, right? So he basically has somebody who has visions and tells him the future. And like I said, it's just a knockoff, a cheap knockoff of Top Dollar. The only difference is that they understand what the Crow is, and they capture the Crow, and Judah kills the Crow. That's the twist to make this one its own movie. Here's the thing, crows are mean. The way they capture this crow and the way it just peacefully goes to his death, it's a puppet and it's been tamed. If that was anything even remotely resembling a real crow, Judah would have no eyes left either and no face. Crows are not to be messed with. I'll give you an example. Watch The Witch. That scene with the crow in that, where God, I forget her name. She's breastfeeding. I think she's breastfeeding the baby, but it's a crow. This crew and even the commander were actually terrified because that thing was just going, and messing about. They're not birds. There's a reason they're feared, and there's a reason there's this sort of respect, because you mess with all them things to take your face off. The way they did that scene was just awful, and blah blah blah. That's all I can say, because there's nothing of note. And even the scenes where you see the crow image happening look bad. You think of the first movie, he only does it once, really, where you see the crow symbol when he does it with the lighter fluid, and you got it because there's a bit of supernatural element, and that was his only time he's really sending a massive message of what he is. But you've got this appearing every 5 minutes. Iggy Pop's character, God, who you call him? Curve. So I'll have these weird nicknames. Starts off with him getting a tattoo, and then the tattoo changes and stuff, and it just, they really beat you over the head with it. It's like every other scene. every one of the days you get the crow shape put out as if it was a freaking bat signal. And honestly, you lose the effect. In the first movie, it was done once, and you had the effect because it was a poignant moment. It's where he was like really going to go to town and taking out all the henchmen. He's going to go for the leader. This, they're just like, you don't care. But they do it the third time, or when Curve's character dies, they do it with the flowers and so on. It's daft. Like, yeah, even Curve's death was the worst because it's supposed to be like one of them waterways spill things. But of course, people are throwing flowers and stuff in it. You know, when it's the homeless people are, taking part in the festival and throwing flowers, and nothing's real. And it's all done artsy fartsy looking, just no any grit they've tried to put in with the aesthetics is gone with the each of the scenes. I think that's what I'm thinking. A pop video. This is like an extended music video rather than a movie. The more I think about it, that's the best description of this. It's if they made a Crow soundtrack album and this just played along, I think that would be more apt than actually saying this was a movie. If they had to make this Crow the musical and actually had everybody singing instead of speaking, this would have made more sense. God, they even have Corn in this, randomly performing in the street thing. Just nothing adds up. You just scratch your head going, what am I watching here? And the end scene as well with the murder of crows, like that had to be some of the cheesiest effects that just didn't make any sense. And yeah, then the movie kind of bit more of a monologue and the movie ends, and that's kind of it. Really disappointing. I remember not liking this back in the day, and now I know why. Because it's just not good. If this movie had to come out first, because there's no real. If you remove the Sarah character, discount Sarah because she wasn't Sarah, this could have been like any timeline. If they had released this movie first, it would have died a death. It just wouldn't have landed because you just would have looked at this and went, nah, not for me, thanks. So there you go. That's that. I don't really know what else to say about it. What do you think in the chat there, folks? Any is somebody I rate guns. You've seen it. Know there's a few people lurking there. I don't think there's really much else to say about this. It's just it follows the same beats. It doesn't do it as well. It spent more money and made it look worse. Way to go. So look at these other two. Aussie next week, busy. There's a stream on every night. So it might be the weekend again, but should I look at Salvation and Wicked Prayer? Get these all watched before this abortion of a remake I have to suffer through. Get myself crowed out. What do you think? Anyway, yeah, I'll wrap it up there on the roads. So yeah, let me know what you think, folks. Am I completely wrong? Is this the bestest sequel ever? Did you just really enjoy it? Do tell me how I'm completely misjudging this movie. But yeah, there you go. Yep, I'll schedule in the other two, get them out of the way, and just to say, till next time, keep up with the channel, do the type of clicky things, and remember to keep it creepy, keep it horrific.